Donald Trump has tweeted out that the big tech social media companies are being controlled by the radical left and that something will be done to remedy this illegal situation. He tweeted out a video from a group called America First, which was a speech by Michelle Malkin, which shortly after disappeared. Now, they're claiming that it was deleted by Twitter. I can't confirm that, but it's entirely possible, just considering Twitter often removes videos that Donald Trump will tweet out. Now, many people will try and tell you there's no such thing as bias on social media. Then they'll move the goalposts once you prove it and say, oh, but it's a private company. They can ban whoever they want. It's not social media bias. You don't understand the First Amendment. The reality is these big tech companies absolutely are biased in favor of the tribal left. Now, something strange has been happening ever since the culture war evolved more into politics of 2020. Instead of talking about issues of hate speech, we're now dealing with censorship relating to the coronavirus pandemic simply based on what Donald Trump has supported. It's the weirdest thing. We're seeing videos of doctors being removed, actual experts having their videos taken down because their opinion is contrary or counter to what the mainstream media has been saying. This is the evolution of the culture war social media censorship. It's not even about right or left-wing policy anymore. It's about supporting particular tribes. Now, Donald Trump's tweet comes just after it was announced that the feds, the Justice Department, states attorneys are likely to bring antitrust lawsuits against Google. This is huge. This will be one of the biggest antitrust cases, assuming it happens, since the 90s. Many people have argued it needs to happen because, well, these companies are too powerful. Look, I'm on YouTube. I benefit greatly from YouTube, but the reality is many other platforms can't even compete because Google controls so much of the internet environment. It's not just about video hosting. It's about advertising in general and how many other companies can't raise the money to even go up against Google. But there are serious considerations when it comes to how we deal with these things. Andrew Yang, for instance, said, does anyone really want to use Bing? No, we like Google. Google is the service we use. It's the tool. How could there be other search engines? But I have a point I want to bring up as we get into the story. Right now, the Democrats have voted to allow remote voting in the House. Republicans are slamming Nancy Pelosi, calling this a power grab, that she can basically pass bills without even any counter arguments because people will just vote from home. They say it's a bad thing. Well, the argument is because of the coronavirus pandemic, we need remote voting. Otherwise, there won't be a session of Congress at all. The Senate disagrees. But here's my question. They argue that these big tech companies are private businesses that can do whatever they want. It's a private company, right? And the First Amendment doesn't apply to them. Well, let me then bring this up. If you're going to tell us in your big cities, in New York, in California, or elsewhere, that we're not allowed to gather and peaceably assemble, like New York, for instance, Mayor Bill de Blasio and the NYPD commissioner said no protesting allowed. Well, that is a suspension of our right to assemble and speak. If they can get remote voting and handle civics over the internet, why shouldn't we have our rights guaranteed as well? If we're not allowed to speak in public, then I will say this. First of all, I don't agree with people being arrested and with protests being shut down, though they're trying to do it. But if you want to argue in favor of that, then I'll say, fine. The compromise would be we get free speech on social media platforms. If we can't go out and do it physically because of the pandemic, then we should demand free speech on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or otherwise, right? Kind of throws them a private company argument out the window. If the Democrats, if the House, if they get to vote remotely, even though these are serious legal matters, then why can't we have these protections as well? The future is very different than, our communication in the future, or I should say in the present, is very different from when the Bill of Rights was created. We do most of our political discourse right here on the internet. So Donald Trump may be a bit hyperbolic when he says that the radical left is in control of everything. I think it's more nuanced than that. But I do think we need to solve this problem, both because of the coronavirus pandemic, but also because, think about how it works, how it could be in the future with Neuralink. If we synchronize ourselves like we already are starting to with mobile phones into the internet for communications and civics, and we don't have any rights, then when companies like Twitter, YouTube, or anyone else bans doctors, we put our health at risk. For who? for companies that are scared of losing money? Well, this was a particularly long intro, so let's get started and read what Trump said. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is share this video. I know. A lot of people don't want to hear what I have to say, and that's fine. Maybe you'll find some people who will. But more importantly, big tech companies, hey, look what we're talking about, prop up the mainstream media. YouTube's algorithm is favoring CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I can't compete with that. They got YouTube on their side, and they got the big ad bucks. If you want to help me out, the best way to actually counter this is by sharing the video, because that's the most effective way to market. Otherwise, if you just want to watch, hit the subscribe button, the like button, the notification bell. Maybe that'll be enough. Let's read. Bloomberg reports Donald Trump accused Facebook Inc., Twitter Inc., and Alphabet Inc.'s Google of being controlled by the radical left, and said that his administration is working to remedy what he called an illegal situation. In a tweet that also mentions that Facebook owned Instagram, the U.S. president commented on a clip by conservative blogger Michelle Malkin, lambasting the so-called deplatforming of conservative voices by technology companies. Trump didn't elaborate on potential measures targeting the tech giants. Malkin, in a recent post on her Twitter account, said that she would not be taking the Gates vaccine. I don't care about that. That's completely irrelevant. But let me show you the tweet from Trump, because something very interesting happened. Here's Donald Trump's tweet, but it says the tweet is unavailable. The video that he posted, which was conservative commentator Michelle Malkin talking about censorship and free speech, is gone. According to America First, they say Twitter deleted this tweet after real Donald Trump shared it. Censorship in America is out of control. We then have this tweet from Michelle Malkin who says, "We see you playing games." And then she says some choice words to particular individuals I'm not going to read. But she posts a screenshot of the tweet being unavailable, and then this post from America First. Now, she didn't outright say the tweet was deleted, but America First did. I can't confirm that. It's entirely possible America First deleted the tweet to make it seem like censorship, but I honestly don't want to be conspiratorial, so the best I can say is the tweet was removed somehow. Here's the problem. Twitter has a track record of removing posts from the president. There was one point where someone at Twitter actually deleted the president's account. I guess they were quitting and on their way out. I don't remember the full story, but it was something to that effect. Twitter doesn't get the benefit of the doubt on this one. While I'm not going to be so hard as to say I know, I lean towards Twitter removed the tweet and then they had to repost it because that's what Twitter's done. Now, there's a bigger question I want to bring up, but I do want to read this Justice Department Google antitrust, and this is huge. This is like a major move being taken against Google in terms of their monopoly. But before, I want to ask this question. I believe that conservatives are at risk of going extinct. I have said as much in a previous video because they are losing the social media battle. It may turn around. They may start winning. But for the time being, we have seen Donald Trump speak a whole lot and never actually do anything. I mean, what did he do? He put out an email list before, like, hey, if you've been a victim of censorship, send us your email. What happened? Now, maybe he's waiting to the last minute. I don't know. But as high-profile Trump supporters continue to get banned and removed, there's a couple arguments that can be made. The first is that if this doesn't stop, Trump will lose. His highest-profile supporters, the people rallying to Trump's defense, are disappearing. And the media is being dominated by left-wing narratives. Reddit, for example, started to ban conservatives, and it created this effect where conservatives would leave the platform, and then Reddit became dominated by left-wing propaganda and fake news. Now, of course, the right has its propaganda and fake news too, but if you go to Reddit, one of the biggest websites in the world for content, you're only seeing anti-Trump memes. That's going to cause serious harm for Donald Trump. Perhaps there's another argument, one I've made as well. This might actually help Donald Trump. If Twitter begins removing the worst actors in the conservative movement, all that's left are suit-wearing regular people. You get rid of the more bombastic personalities, and then Trump's base looks professional and clean. And if they don't get rid of the far-left activists, they look nuts. And regular people will see this, and the media will start to chase after insanity. I think that's one potential. But I do have this story from The Hill. Are conservatives merely wimps on the path to extinction? I can counter this. But first, let's see what's going on with Google. The Wall Street Journal reports both the Justice Department and a group of states' attorneys general, are likely to file antitrust lawsuits against Alphabet Inc.'s Google and are well into planning for litigation according to people familiar with the matter. The Justice Department is moving toward bringing a case as soon as this summer, some of the people said. At least some states' attorneys general, led by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a Republican, are likely to file a case probably in the fall, people familiar with the matter said. Much of the state's investigation is focused on Google's online advertising business. The company owns the dominant tool at every link in the complex chain between online publishers and advertisers. The Justice Department likewise is making Google's ad technology one of its points of emphasis. But it is also focusing more broadly on concerns that Google uses its dominant search business to stifle competition, people familiar with the matter said. I'm going to go ahead and argue there's a strong argument they do. If you go on Google and search for Tim Pool YouTube, guess what? I don't come up. YouTube has removed my channels from Google search. Now, why would they do that? We can speculate. I didn't break any rules. I actually have a very successful channel. So what real reason would they have for removing my channel and many others from search? It could be that it's political, ideological, or it could be they use this to stifle competition and rivals. And when I talk negatively about YouTube, and I do all the time, they remove that negative opinion. This video, for instance, where I'm criticizing Google and YouTube, which I benefit from, I understand, for their censorship and for their algorithmic manipulation, will be suppressed on Google. Now, that sounds like they're trying to benefit and protect their business, and they're using their position to do so. But I understand I'm making a bit of a stretch here. The point is, I'm not going to argue as to why they're removing certain individuals from their search. But if Google uses their search in a way to stifle negative opinion of the practices they're engaging in, it stands to reason maybe they're doing it to protect their business so they can continue being biased. And one of the reasons I think I might actually be censored on the Google search platform is because I routinely point out that Google is censoring people not necessarily for political opinion, but to protect themselves when it pertains to advertising. If Google is censoring people because of rule violations, okay, fine. You can argue, but I'm a private company. But I've broken no rules. In which case, why are they censoring my channel? Could it be that I correctly have pointed out, in my opinion, that YouTube's fear and their censorship actually has to do with protecting their advertisement business, their dominant position? Perhaps, or I'm just stretching it. But we can see this is the main target of their business. Now, I don't know if this will have anything to do with social media censorship. It very likely won't. But let's go to the bigger question here. Are conservatives merely wimps on the path to extinction? I don't necessarily need to read the article. You get the point being made. Let me point out something to you. Tara Reade. When Brett Kavanaugh was attacked, conservatives went on the defensive. When Tara Reade was attacked, some conservatives were defensive, pointing out the double standard. A lot of conservatives actually called her out too. She's the woman who accused Joe Biden. The problem with fighting on principle and demanding a fair play is that the people who are cheating will always cheat. If the Democrats on the left were willing to use these techniques and tactics against Donald Trump, against his appointee, Brett Kavanaugh, and then when it came to Tara Reade, they dropped all, this entire idea, what they claimed were their morals. Republicans playing fair will always be at a disadvantage. Stands to reason. If conservatives, and many of them do, say, but I'm a private business, you're gone. You'll be wiped out. And I've been this argument over and over again. Hey, I don't care. I'm not a conservative. So, I'm a fairly milquetoast fence sitter individual. And I've argued this with conservatives. If you keep defending these companies purging you from what is now the principal way we communicate, don't be surprised when your ideas are gone. But it gets worse. As I mentioned earlier, the culture war has evolved well beyond just hate speech, conservative, liberal. It's evolved well beyond, do you want a flat tax or a progressive tax? We don't even talk about these things anymore. We barely talk about universal health care. I do think if we're having, as I mentioned earlier as well, if there's an argument going on right now about the need for universal basic income due to automation, then shouldn't we also have an argument about the rights of internet-based free speech if the internet is dominating where we share ideas? The culture war has evolved into something new. Take a look at this story. This is from John Levine of the New York Post. YouTube censors epidemiologist Witkowski for opposing lockdown. Donald Trump said liberate. What happens? Elon Musk wants to reopen his factory, and all of a sudden, the tribal left, it predictably calls Elon Musk a horrible person and a monster. They attack him. They insult all the protesters. The culture war now has almost nothing to do with any kind of core principle. I mean, obviously, there's still people like me and the people who follow, like all of you watching, who believe in free speech, liberty, and principles. But the left just basically has devolved into whatever you say we oppose. So if an epidemiologist now comes out, this guy had a video with 1.3 million views, and he was arguing against the lockdown. YouTube removed his video, and he doesn't know why. We also saw a video of two doctors. I don't know if I have this one pulled up. No, this is something different. We had a video of two doctors who were expressing why they thought the lockdown was wrong as well. YouTube took that video down. Why? So I bring up this Wisconsin story. It is relevant. They say after Wisconsin court ruling, crowds liberated and thirsty descend on bars. We're the Wild West, Governor Tony Evers says. But hold on. The rule of law in Wisconsin is that you cannot have these lockdowns. Why would YouTube be censoring videos opposing the lockdown when in some states that is the law? Why would YouTube be advocating for a violation of the law? I don't know. It seems to make no sense. Now, you can argue that conservatives may end up being wiped out. That's one of the big things I wanted to point out. But the reason I'm showing these stories is to kind of counter that. It's not even about being conservative anymore. I don't even know what it really means. The people who are showing up to bars aren't all conservative. And then I want to show you this right here. And I've got a lot more to go through. But this is a poll from Gallup showing that in 2019, people who identify as liberal actually went down for the first time in like 10 years. And people identifying as conservative actually started to go up while people who identified as moderate stayed the same. I don't think conservatives are going to be wiped out. In fact, I think with Donald Trump tweeting this, whether or not he actually does anything, I think conservatives are actually starting to see a major benefit. They're actually starting to win. I think with the victories we saw for the Republican Party in California's 25th and Wisconsin 7th show that conservatives may absolutely be dominating. People might finally be waking up now to the fact that the Democrats aren't doing anything for anyone, or that these big tech companies are just desperately trying to pander and censor whatever they think goes against leftist tribalism. I really don't know what it is other than the people who are scared of breaking ranks. If you're someone like me, I've talked about a ton of controversial issues. Don't care. I talk about what I want, even if conservatives are mad at me, even if liberals are mad at me. And I have said, it's only a matter of time before the conservatives get mad at me, because when during Occupy Wall Street, the left was cheering me on, conservatives were critical, and it flipped because I adhere to my principles, what I think is true and correct. What we're seeing with YouTube, in my opinion, isn't so much about whether or not they are left or right in terms of politics. It's about they think the dominant cultural force is the left. I don't think so anymore. And that's the point I was making with the Gallup poll. It's shifting. 37% of, so this article from Gallup says the U.S. remained center-right ideologically in 2019. If conservatives make up the largest faction and Democrats or liberals are shrinking, then it stands to reason conservatives aren't going to be wiped out. They're actually growing. They might continue to grow. And with this devastating victory, or I should say the devastating defeat of Democrats in CA25, conservatives may be on track to win. If at some point YouTube realizes they're actually advocating for law breaking and that they're actually censoring experts, they might have to make a serious change. I don't know if that will happen, but I think these big tech companies, while many of the people who work there are biased, are leftist, we just saw recently Google has been shuttering one of their diversity and inclusion programs, and according to NBC News, they're slowly doing away with it. I think they're starting to realize they bet on the wrong horse. Their censorship makes no sense. Look at this story from the New York Post, right? They say, Witkowski, 65, is a ferocious critic of the nation's current steps to fight the coronavirus. He has derided social distancing, saying it only prolongs the virus existence, and has attacked the current lockdown as mostly unnecessary. They mention that YouTube removed a video of him talking about the virus, which had racked up more than 1.3 million views. Why? He's literally an expert. I think at a certain point, YouTube has to recognize they've bet on the wrong horse. I take a look at a lot of these movies that have come out, the ones that have gotten, they say, get woke or go broke. Not every single woke film has gone broke. Or I should say not every single woke campaign has gone broke. Captain Marvel, for instance, from the MCU was fairly woke and it made a ton of money, but people are kind of mixed on it. We recently saw Birds of Prey. Yes, this is relevant. Let me explain. As these companies start to realize they're losing money, as YouTube starts to realize they're risking their bottom line, as people lose faith in mainstream news media, at a certain point, these companies need to ask themselves, are they going to destroy their own business simply because they're late to the party? They bet on the wrong horse. They bet on the left. Well, people got sick and tired of it, and their opinions are shifting. I think what we're seeing is Twitter, Facebook, YouTube are late to the party. Very early on, they were all very, very much excited, eager to suspend and censor conservative opinion. But something started changing. Mark Zuckerberg even came out in favor of free speech at one point. But he did recently appoint a very social justice-y board, independent review board. So it's hard to know if conservatives are winning, or losing in certain respects. But I will say, in my opinion, it stands to reason conservatives have actually turned the tide and slowly started to win. Look, the fact that Jack Dorsey would even have the conversation with me last year shows that they didn't understand what was going on. And the conversation ultimately ended with them saying, oh, thank you for the feedback. If these companies want to make money, they need to go where the money is. And as their demographic shrinks, they need to adapt. So outside of them even being, I'll put it this way. We can argue that maybe they're ideological, maybe they weren't. But here's what I think. I think ultimately they're just thinking about how they can make money. And that's really what it comes down to. And as we've seen in politics, everything flows in one direction. If you come out as right wing, you're greeted with a parade. If you move to the left, you're scrutinized and attacked. The left tries to recruit through fear and cancellation and attacks, and the right tries to recruit through love and acceptance and, a pizza party. And that's not even my opinion. Everybody recognizes this. Slowly over time, this is a one-way valve. People can be pushed out of the left very easily and not be welcomed back. Guess what happens? The largest portion of the market will be conservative, and these social media companies will see their bottom line shrink and a real risk emerge because this creates the opportunity for real competition. In that regard, I think YouTube is very eager to prop up some conservative voices. I think we're seeing a change in YouTube. And I'll tell you something I noticed. For the longest time, I've seen YouTube overtly just propping up Fox News. Most people have told me this. Recently, it's changed. And now we're starting to see more channels start to come back into the autoplay rotation, including mine, which is surprising. Still very much so less than the mainstream media. But I think these big tech companies realized you can try to pander to the press. But as less and less people trust the press, your safer bet is to side with the people, the crowd, the largest portion of the market. That doesn't mean that what this market wants is correct. It doesn't mean that conservatives are right. It just means that initially YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook thought this is where the money is, just favor these people. And now that seems to be changing, now they're starting to back away and say, okay, now how do we transition to get the money from the other people? I'll tell you what, maybe you just don't be biased in the first place. Maybe you just have these rules be standardized. Here's the problem. YouTube will never, Google will never, Facebook, all these companies will never be able to successfully monetize off of a leftist ideology because they complain about everything. It's a circular firing squad. You can never be pure enough. And no matter what Google does, they will always, always complain. If you want to run ads and you want to be safe and you want to be successful, the best position is to be on the free speech side. Because then if anyone tries to cancel, you can just fan it off and say free speech. And there's more people who want free speech than don't. Or I should say, at least the people who want free speech are consistent on what they find offensive. Donald Trump tweeted about the radical left. Does that mean he's actually going to do anything? I really doubt it. But we'll see how it plays out, I guess. Right now, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all these companies are on the wrong side of this. The lockdowns are being deemed unconstitutional, and many states are even opening up. Why then would YouTube ban this content? I honestly have no idea. But they are late to the party. They have no idea what's happening. And it's about time they just put down the ban hammer. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all then.